Jumpin In on Manx Radio.
With Howard and Chris Kane.
Hello.
Good evening.
And welcome. And can it be? Yes, it can, unbelievably. It is the last Jumpin' In of 2022 already. The best in modern and contemporary jazz from the last 12 months with myself, H.
And me, Chris. Yes, welcome along to this year-end special of Jumpin' In. And what a year we've had. It has to be said that after a week of excess and you prepare for yet another night of excess, there can be nothing better to get you in the mood than a selection of some of the very best jazz releases of 2022. And with over 1,000 releases to pick from, this year it'll come as no surprise that we may have some differing choices than the big jazz magazines. I, for one, have based my choices upon repeated listenings. Of course, you may choose the stick a pin in it method. So what's pricked your ears up and popped your jazz bubble this year, H?
Plenty to choose from. I brought a random selection today. We'll have more next week, and I was thinking for a nice reissue as well. I might bring one of those along next week as well. For this evening, we will be looking at 12 Stars, an early starter for me in one of my favourites of the year from Melissa Eldana. At the other end of the scale, the Bad Plus, who we saw just before Christmas at the London Jazz Festival with their new lineup and new band, and the ever green and ever wonderful Mary Halverson.
And from me, a thing, a place, an animal, and to get underway, some strength, resolve and determination as we head for the new year. Here's Sisu. Sisu, the title track from the Estonian pianist and composer Christian Randalu and the New Wind Jazz Orchestra. As much in demand as a classical pianist as for his jazz work, he's got some 40-plus jazz albums featuring him as a sideman and at least a dozen in his own name. But this is his first big bang outing, and what a fabulous album it is, really is. Every track is worth a listen. This did make many of the jazz critics' lists, and who am I to disagree? He studied variously in his own country and then at the Royal Academy and the Manhattan School of Music. And it seems to me that his time with teachers such as John Taylor, Django Bates and Kenny Barron have borne fruit indeed. Sisu is out now on Whirlwind Records, and thanks very much to them for sending us a copy.
Yes, some great stuff have been coming out on Whirlwind and on quite a few of the major labels, along with a whole scutch of lesser-known, smaller labels as well. You just don't know where to turn these days. It seems to be coming out of the woodwork, some great jazz. This one was one that, like I said, made it onto my list early in the new year. I think it was spring when this one came out on Blue Note. The first for Melissa Aldana, the wonderful sax player from Chile, if memory serves correct. I had the great joy of seeing her with her Crash Trio a year or two back at the Pizza Express. Very much a Sonny Rollins acolyte, but finding her own great voice as well, and has been going great strides. This one onto this major label, onto Blue Note with her current band. It was called 12 Stars, and we're going to hear the first track on it, a cracking one, or the one I really probably enjoy most out of the album, although the whole album's worth checking out. This is called Falling. Terrific. Enjoyed that one a lot. Enjoyed the whole album. That was maybe a standout track, and I don't know. Subtle use of electronics. Like it a lot. Melissa Eldana on tenor sax, Lage Lund on guitars, and Gizmos, as it's listed on the album. I think that's the electronics bit of things. Sullivan Faulkner on acoustic piano and Rhodes as well. Rhodes very much back in fashion again. Pablo Manara's bass and Kush Abedi on drums, which I think has been a regular working outfit for some time. Fascinated to hear where she'll be going next. Definitely finding her own voice. Still has that lovely big round sound on the tenor, beloved of her master and her guru. Sonny Rollins, of course, where she was hailing out from, but more than finding her own voice and her own path now, and a real leading light, I think, in the tenor sax heading into the 2020s and beyond, no doubt. So I'll be really fascinated to hear whether she stays on Blue Note, whether she goes off on her own tangent. Who knows? But check that one out. Definitely on my list. 12 stars, Melissa Eldana.
And plenty in the band who also got their own recordings, including Sullivan Faulkner, of course. Now, next from me, a Brooklyn-based guitarist whose music I've been following the last few years. But his recent release moves away, perhaps, from the more traditional chorus solo approach to jazz improvisation into group improvising, and the result is a compelling listen throughout. From This Entity Makes Music, here's Nick Russo and the band with the album opener, As the World Crumbles Around Me. The world crumbles around me, which may well reflect the way your evening is going. Hopefully you've got everything under control. From guitarist Nick Russo and the quartet, who were joined by a number of additional guests on that track, including the inimitable Alex Sipayagan on trumpet. This Entity Makes Music is out now on Adi Haropa Records, and thanks to them for sending us a copy.
Indeed. Thank you. You are listening to Jumpin In, and it is our Best of the Year special. One of two programmes. We decided there were so many, we wouldn't fit them all into one, so we're going to spoil ourselves. This New Year's Eve and next week as well, we'll be looking back at some of our favourites, for whatever reason, from the last 12 months. One of mine, well, again, Mary Halverson is... You're never going to call her an easy listen because you have to actually listen. You won't put it on the background. You have to sit down and listen to her music. Always challenging, always interesting. She's always going places, and as NPR put, the most future-seeking guitarist working right now. Both the albums enjoyable. I played a bit of Amaryllis, so I thought I'd have a little bit of Belladonna, and this track's called Nodding Yellow.
Hi, this is Maria Schneider, and you're listening to Jumpin' In with H and Chris on Manx Radio.
There we go, 2 from me for the price of 1, as they say. A little bit of a 2 for 2 favourites from the last 12 months. Mary Halverson, the first one from her sort of 2 released simultaneously, Belladonna and Amaryllis. And we'd played quite a bit of Amaryllis, I think, over the last year, or certainly since it came out. Not so much Belladonna. I prefer the Amaryllis, which is probably why, because it's more with her own band and with vibraphone and trombone and trumpet. Belladonna is with the string quartet we heard there. So Mary Halverson on guitar with the Mivos quartet, Olivia De Prato on violin, Maya Bernardo on violin as well, and then Victor Alauri Tafoya on viola, and Tyler J. Borden on the cello, making up that string quartet. And we heard a Nodding Yellow there. Music you've got to listen to. Not an easy listen, I grant you, necessarily, but I like it in as much as it forces you to listen, which is always something, rather than just perhaps something which instantly grabs you. Followed on by something out very recently, the reformed Bad Plus. They decided to couldn't really just go for a trio again, almost teetered on the brink, and we have an interview with them coming up early in the new year, hopefully. They almost decided to sort of disband, but thought, no, what the hell, we'll carry on, but we'll reform, as they did, and have now become a quintet. So we still have the basis of Reed Anderson on bass and Dave King on drums, who they feel they are the sort of the Bad Plus basis, and they've now brought in Ben Monder on guitar, Chris Speed on a tenor, not Chris Cheek as I kept calling him in the interview, and on saxophone and clarinet. So I said quintet, quartet, they've made it now into a quartet with the boys there as well. And none the worse for that, because they said the essence is in the composition, they felt. So the essence of the Bad Plus is still there. And from their new one on Edition, a new label as well, the Edition label, wonderful stuff. Motivations 2 we heard there. Great stuff, check that out as well.
And great to see live, it has to be said. We caught them at Ronnie Scott's, and sadly no piano, but well, we see. You can also catch up with their views on that particular question when we play the interviews. Next up, a saxophonist that's produced consistently excellent releases to date, mainly exploring his Puerto Rican roots and often heavily political, raising issues and including voices of his community. But in this instance, he spread his musical wings a bit further to tackle a much bigger canvas with his release this year of Música de las Americas, exploring the rich history of the American continents. Here's Tenos y Caribs. Fantastic stuff. Tainos y Caribes, or the original Aboriginal culture of the Antilles. A fantastic piece of writing and playing from Miguel Zenon and his long-standing quartet of Louis Perdomo on piano, Hans Glasfresnig on bass, and Henry Cole at the drums. Augmented on the album by 8 additional percussionists, and of course Miguel Zenon on alto. The album is a must. It's called The Musica de las Americas and it's out now on Miel Records.
Terrific stuff. I could easily have chosen that one. Happily we didn't choose the same one, but yeah, check that one out. Do not miss it. Very good indeed. Walter Smith has been having his In Common project for several years now. It's one of these ones where you sort of move the personnel around. So In Common, the first one, had Walter with Matthew Stevens, Joel Ross, the Vibes player, Marcus Gilmore. The second one featured Mika Thomas and Linda May, Han O and Nate Smith. And then the third one as Dave Holland, the man who gave our show its name, and Terry Lynn Carrington at the drums. From that, here's Loping. Another great one on the Whirlwind label in 2022. In Common 3, the third lineup of this band, always featuring, and it's basically the man who's brought it all together is the sax player Walter Smith III, who we saw a few years back with his own band, not with In Common, with his own band at Southport, and he was disappointing, I must admit, when we saw him live. I think he was jet-lagged. He just wasn't really with it at all and was going through the motions. But these albums In Common have been particularly good. The first two excellent, and this one's growing on me with every repeated listen. Walter himself on a tenor saxophone, Chris Davis on piano, Matthew Stevens on guitar, Dave Holland, that Dave Holland on bass, and Terry Lynn Carrington at the drums. I don't know where In Common 4 might be heading in 2023.
He did promise it was just a triplicate of records, but we'll have to wait and see. And yes, you've got to take some sympathy that after 14 or 15 hours travelling, playing jazz at 10 o'clock in the morning is not perhaps the easiest thing for everyone, but the albums are uniformly excellent. Well, that's about it for this week's show, and indeed for this year. But we'll be
amazing.
back next week with some more of our favourites from the last 12 months. Just time to fit in a really quirky release from Belgian bassist and cellist Laura Rossiel on the Belgian Wurf label, or Wurf. Her release Heart, which is Dutch for deer, as in deer with reindeer type deer, has been engaging and a curious album. Each track seems to explore a different part of the jazz language. So as a second release, I'm sure she has plenty more to come. Here's À la Ouest. As the setting sun of 2022 headed west, we too will say goodbye for 22. Cheers. Here's
Indeed.
À la Ouest.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
The other side.